Hi, it's Elizabeth Ailey. I am a Feng Shui consultant, and today I'm going to be going over the Flying Star Energy Update for 2023. Now, if you're unfamiliar, Flying Star is really a mathematical energy reading of your space. It is based on a compass reading. It's based on where you are actually located on the earth, where's magnetic north, what's the energy of the surrounding area, and then connecting that to the cosmology or Chinese astrology, Bazi, the movement of the planets. We are doing as above, so below, right? So if you're new to this concept, welcome. And it's not actually a very new concept. It is an ancient concept. And we could debate how old it is, but it's around 4,000 years old. So it's ancient. And we are using the ancient traditional Bagua, the traditional Bagua that you see in China, used still today. That is what we are going to be going over in this video. We're going to be going over what is the energy change and shift that is happening in 2023. And again, this is based on the changes that we see in the sky and how they impact our home environment, our everyday life, what we can do to remedy it. There are very simple things for this collective energy reading. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up a traditional Bagua so you can take a look at this. A lot of people in the West are familiar with the Bagua. That means the translation, Pa is 8 and Gua is section. Now, when you look at this Bagua, the Feng Shui map, you'll notice there's actually 9 sections. And you're like, what's that about? What's going on here? Well, the reason that it's being divided up in this way is that we are basing the energy off of the actual degree points in the home, right? So we are looking at, first, where's magnetic north, right? And then we're seeing, where's south, east, west, everything else kind of falls into place when you divide up that energy. And when you go to the center of the home, we're looking at that as that additional section. That is the health unity space in the home. And that is the traditional method of looking at it. There are some Feng Shui practitioners that actually do divide it up into just 8 sections from the very center, which I think is great and really interesting. You'll notice when you do that to a home, however, that then you get all of these little kind of sliver pie pieces in the center, right? So that's why the center is really the overall health and unity of the home. Because what you're doing is you're pulling in all of that energy together. So that is why we are calling the center of the space the health and unity center. So I hope that makes sense. But this is a traditional Bagua. And if this is new to you, this is great. I want you to know that, in Feng Shui, the compass is being used. The compass was invented in China. We're talking about the low pan here, but using lodestones, this is what the compass was used for. This was the reason they started going, wow, magnetic north, like what is this? Earth energy, right? They were great. The ancient masters were great observers. So they were looking at nature. They were looking at the 5 different elements. That's what we look at also in Feng Shui. They were looking at the stars. They were looking at all of these different interactions and saying, how can we align with this energy? They were looking at the way that, even like military things or things that were happening in the community. They would look at, well, what's the most protective position? The command position, right? Where would you want to place your home to have the healthiest, best life, right? So all of these things are incorporated into traditional Feng Shui. So it is power and placement, but also energy is information that moves. So that's what Flying Star is. Hope I didn't lose you, or hope that wasn't too complicated. But essentially, Flying Star is the movement of energy, and these are very old calculations that are based on It's called the Lo Shu. It's actually known, lots of mathletes out there might know this as the magic square, but we use this as a base for the equations that we're running that are based again on the stars and your actual physical location. Okay, so I hope that makes sense, and I hope you're excited to kind of look at this information, see how this is impacting your life, and see some really simple ways that you can align your home and really align your life to make sure that you are in a very good place for all of the different changing energy that is coming into your life. Okay, so the Feng Shui New Year starts on February 4th, 2023. It starts on that date because it is it's the Chinese solar calendar. And it is, of course, it's different than the Chinese Lunar New Year. That is on January 22nd, 2023. The reason that they're different is, of course, one is based on observations and orbits of the moon, around the earth. And then the other, the Feng Shui New Year, is based on the movements of the sun, as well as the other celestial bodies, other planets that are being charted in that year. So what is happening? I want to start actually by talking about 2022, because when I began doing flying star energy, it allowed me to see how these energy or number combinations moving into different sections of the home were actually impacting my life. So again, and then, friends' lives and then clients' lives, and I'm at this point where I drank the Kool-Aid, I just see it over and over and over again. And I think that this might be a helpful way to start this, particularly if this is a new concept for you. So again, here's the Bagua. We are placing this Bagua based on the actual directions, the cardinal directions in the home. So once you know, where's north in my home, where's south, you can then divide up your home into these different sections. So once you have done that, you can see that these different sections correspond and connect to different meridians in your life that you are experiencing. Now, traditional Chinese medicine and Feng Shui actually have the same root, right? They have a lot of the same philosophies. So the Bagua, when we're looking at these guas, these sections, they're really meridians in the house. Just like your body has meridians, different energy points, this is exactly what the Bagua is doing. It is just looking at your home. And so these different sections have meaning, right? So the south is fame, illumination, reputation, how you shine your light in the world, right? Makes a lot of sense too when you think about south, the sun, all of that, right? But this is how we are connecting that energy. So you look at these different sections and you are able to see what you have placed in these different areas of your home, what you can place in these different areas of your home to call in or manifest or draw attention to things that you would like to draw into your life. That is intentional Feng Shui. It's an important part that I want to make sure that if you're new to this concept, this is an important thing to know. What we're going to be looking at here is, of course, where this energy comes in. So back to 2022. So last year, the two unfavorable numbers that we had and two kind of potential shakeups, and this is again collective reading because this is energy for the entire space, for the entire world, was health and unity. It was in the center of the home. So health and unity were impacted. And then the other major thing that was impacted in 2022 was in the Southwest, which is love, relationships, particularly marriage bonds, but also deep personal friendships. So there might have been some very big realizations. There might have been some very tricky things that had to be discussed, moved through last year. Those may be things that you experienced. Now, if you had remedies in these locations, which I will go over, you may have noticed that that energy was much more mitigated, that it felt much more natural if there was a relationship that had kind of a breakup, if there was, hopefully not a health scare, but if there was something like that that happened in your life, that you were able to see it as a kind of a call to action, right? So those were the two biggest unfavorable unknown energies that happened last year. And if you want to actually look over what I talked about last year, you can look at last year's video and kind of review that and see if any of that connects for you. Okay, so here are where the numbers are changing and shifting into the new guas, the new sections, the new areas of our life in 2023. So let's start with the positive. All of the numbers 1, 6, 4, and 8 are considered auspicious. And the most auspicious number is the number 8. And there's a very long description, long tangent I can go on about the number 8. But suffice it to say is it's very, very important in Chinese culture. And there are many different places that they have called out the importance of 8. Of course, Bagua, we just talked about how, the 8 sections. There's also the 8 immortals, which I will say is interesting story. I'll talk about that later. But there are lots of different ways in which we call in this energy. 8, 8, so 8 times 8 gives us 64. Those are all of the I Ching, if you're familiar with the Book of Changes, and the hexagram, trigram information, that comes in with the number 8. 8 is especially auspicious right now because in Feng Shui, we go through much larger, so this is the annual number shifts, right? We then also have larger time frame shifts, which happens in most cosmologies have, it's like wheels upon wheels upon wheels, right? Well, we also go through 20-year sections, and construction period, building period is what some people call it. But since 2004, we have been in a construction period of 8. So during this period, 8 is extra auspicious and very, very good. So this is our last year in that energy. It's not a negative thing. It's just something to think about when you look at, how has your life changed? What are relationships, moves, things that have happened since 2004? Well, this is the last year for that energy. The next 20 years, which will start next year in 2024, will then move to 9. So the cosmology information, this feng shui information that I'm giving you, is based on digital root numbers. So that is 1 through 9, and then you reset, right? So we have gone through a very big cycle, right? We are about to go into the 9 next year, and that's going to be a whole other 20-year block, right? So, but still, this year, number 8 is extra auspicious, very, very good energy, and that is showing up in your South, which is fame, reputation, illumination. Other good energy is going into, 1 is going into love and relationships, beginning energy. That can be very auspicious for something new coming into your life. So if that is something that you're interested in or looking for, or a renewal of a current relationship or relationships, that is something to explore and to, work with the energy and go out and take a salsa dancing class or whatever it is, right? Follow what makes you happy and find like-minded people that are in that zone. Health, goodness. We just moved out of a 5. We've now got a 4 here. So hopefully that means that there is collectively a little bit of a reprieve, right? A little bit more of an understanding of what's going on. Because one of the things about the number 5 that we are told is there's just kind of this, there's a lot of unknown with 5. And with 5, it can actually be for some people, it can be a very positive thing and then also a very negative thing. But the ancient masters essentially looked at it as like a big question mark energy. Like it could kind of come from either side and we don't know. And and their viewpoint was, if it's an unknown, we don't know, it's unknown, right? So they didn't know how to approach it. So that's why it's looked at it as unfavorable. And then the same thing with Southwest, having that being the 2 and then having that kind of deep breath of now we're moving into something new, right? Now we're moving into a 1. We're moving into something that is hopefully much better for everybody involved. And, an important observation that I like to think about when these numbers, or if something happens in your life that was unexpected, like a breakup or something of that nature, sometimes you have to look at it as if there is a tree or a bush that is diseased and there is a branch that needs to be cut. And I'm not saying that you should cut people out of your life, but sometimes that does happen. And sometimes that happens regardless of what you do, right? It is sometimes the healthiest thing is to just trim off that branch so that the plant, the tree can grow and actually prosper, and stop that spread that was happening in that negative place in your life. I hope that's helpful. Another good energy is going into children and creativity, which is the number 6. West is also, again, these are sections of your home. So that is, projects. Creativity can be also creativity in children, of course. Those things are very much connected. I'm a mom, I should know. But these are, if there's a project or something that you've always wanted to do, if there's always a place that you've wanted to take your life, then this can be a good time for that. This could also hopefully be a good time for children, fertility, and that type of thing. The one thing, of course, I want to mention is that I'm not going to be going over how to boost any of this energy in these sections, and I'm going to be very cautious about, I'm only going to recommend things that I know will absolutely be helpful, because this is a collective reading. So each home has its own permanent numbers in each gua. There's actually 2 numbers in each different section of the home that correspond to the energy of when the family, now this is one of the traditional methods, because sometimes families would live in a home, pass them down through generations, right? So it would be when the family energy entered the home, when you moved into the home, or when the house was built. That energy connecting with what was happening with the cycle period we just talked about, the building period that it was in, so the energy of the stars, and then also the direction of magnetic north, that gives me an equation that gives me energy combinations in each section. Okay, I hope that wasn't too complicated, but why I mentioned that is that I'm talking about annual numbers right now that are for the collective that are moving every year, right? These are going to cycle into something else in 2024. And the reason I'm being cautious about what I tell people to place in their house is because your house does have its own personal information, its own energy map reading. That is what I do as a consultant. I do the compass, I say, what's the energy that's happening here? And if I said in this general reading, like, hey, let's boost 8, right? Well, you might have energy that's happening also in your space that we don't want to boost, right? That wouldn't be the right energy fit. So this is going to be much more general. If you want to have something that is more personal on your home reading, you can do a consultation with me. Okay, now I got the disclaimer out of the way. Some of the unfavorable numbers. Let's talk about it. So we have the 5 and 2, and they are going into, the 5 is going into the northwest, which is travel and helpful people. This is also healed ancestors and angels, right? So this could be an important year to really, if you pray, or if you have an altar, or if you believe in ancestors that are watching over you, this can be a really good time this year to light candles for them, and thank them and have gratitude for them and to support them. Travel and helpful people kind of go hand in hand. So that's an important thing to look at. And this doesn't mean that you should have any type of fear by any of these numbers. Again, 5 in particular is just kind of an unknown. Maybe you make some travel plans and they don't exactly go how you were planning, but maybe that shift, maybe that change ended up being something positive for you, right? So these are just kinds of heads up. I'm going to talk about 2 that's happening in the east, and then I'll talk about how to remedy both of those, because the remedy is going to be the same. So 2, the black star, is going into community, family, and elders. So that is, of course, an important piece of everyone's life. This is also kind of the family area of the home, is in the east. It's an important place to, have images of your family, to really respect and be respectful of your family, and to be aware of that this is coming into that area. Okay, so how do we remedy these 2 energies? Well, I mentioned before that Feng Shui and traditional Chinese medicine have the same root, right? We're both working with, the 5 different Chinese elements. We also recommend acupuncture, right? We're talking about meridians. I don't know if you've ever had acupuncture before, and the miracle of acupuncture. If you haven't, I highly recommend it. I found it completely life-changing for me. But how are you going to do home acupuncture, you say? Well, we do this through something called heavy metal. And so heavy metal is literally that. We are talking about metal that you're going to place in the east and the northwest sections of your home. And how much metal are you going to add? Well, if it is up to 1,000 square feet, that's going to be 45 pounds of heavy metal. So that's quite a bit. For clients, I usually recommend, and I do this too, but I usually recommend things like kettlebells can be really great because they're easy to transport if they need to be moved. They're easily hidden. I also think the weighted discs that you use for like weightlifting are excellent. Don't make the mistake that I did when I was starting out. I got 40, so I needed 45 pounds, so I got 45-pound weights, and I am tiny and mighty, but those are still tricky for me to move if I have to move them. So what's much easier to do, and what I have done in other locations, is I get 10-pound weights and I stack them up, and then I hide them underneath, like a couch or a cabinet. They do not have to be visible. Caveat to that is that you don't wrap them in things. Like you don't wrap them in plastic, and you don't want the weights that kind of are wrapped in plastic. There are some dumbbells, for example, that have kind of that coating on them. You don't want that. You want the actual heavy metal. Other things, you may already have heavy metal in these locations of your home. So examples of things with heavy metal, it's literally anything that has metal in it. So like a refrigerator is a ton of heavy metal. If you have heavy metal in any of these sections, great, you're good to go. Cast iron bathtub, for example, heavy metal, you did it. A treadmill, super heavy. I don't know if you've ever had to move a treadmill, but dear God, that is a lot of heavy metal. So things like that in offices, printers, servers, very large computers, not so much a thing we have anymore, but if you're looking at this in your office space, metal filing cabinets, Of course, any kind of metal art, as long as it doesn't have any sharp, pointy pieces on it, that's something we don't want to have out. Copper pans and things like that can definitely be heavy metal. Caveat I want to mention is that stoves, barbecues, wood burning stoves do not count, unfortunately, because because fire burns metal. In the how we work with the energy of the 5 different Chinese elements, that basically negates that energy, that metal energy. So that is how you can work with that. So I recommend finding out where these sections are in your home. Having an actual clear measurement of your home is really important, because you might, not get I've done this myself, not get exactly the right line, that right position for where you need to put the heavy metal. So having a real scale, floor plan is really helpful, and then you know exactly where to put the heavy metal for these locations. So that's the home acupuncture that we're talking about. So why heavy metal? Why does it work? Well, it's a theory. So it's a theory because this is a consensus. This is what the ancient masters tell us. I have my own observations about it, but essentially the heavy metal is supposed to be weighing down that energy and dispersing it. It is clearing it out. I always like to think about, like Faraday cages that people put on, like your smart meter on your home to block EMF, Faraday cage that you'd put on your Wi-Fi to block EMF, little pouches that you put your cell phone in. There are, it's fabric that's basically woven with a bunch of metal. And if you have like a trifold meter for, reading EMF, RF, energy, you will see that when you actually, with a reader, you will see that when you put something like a cell phone, for example, and you cover it in a Faraday cage, you will see that the numbers, the radiation numbers, the EMF numbers go way down, right? So it's essentially blocking out that energy. That's how I like to think of it. Or another example I like to use that came to me literally at the dentist was, and they don't really do this anymore, but or at least my dentist doesn't. But when you would get x-rays, the radiation, they go overhand the corner and they're like, it's not hurting you, but anyway. And they would give you this like lead vest and you're like, oh, this feels good. But they put this lead vest on you and then they would put the, the x-ray right up to your mouth and they would take x-rays, right? Well, what was the purpose of the lead vest, right? This big weighted vest. It was blocking, it's protecting these other areas of your body from this energy coming in. That's my understanding of what this heavy metal is doing. Try it in your home, see if it works for you. If you don't have, if these locations fall into really tricky spots, like right by the front door, in a hallway, places you don't have room for heavy metal, something that you can try, and this is an experiment I've been doing for about 1.5 years. So far, I think things are going okay. I think if you get some orgone, if you're familiar with Wilhelm Reich and his work, if you get real orgone though, which means that it has to be 50-50 electric dielectric, so it has to have 50% metal in it. It has to be very, very heavy metal content. That can be helpful. That could be something that you place there. I still recommend just the regular heavy metal. Again, this is a test I'm kind of doing to see, does this help? What does this do? So far, I think it's inconclusive, but it does seem to be helping. So that is some potential things that you can put in those locations. The next 2 numbers I want to talk about are 3 and 7. So these are, I don't want to say minor stars, but these are potential energies. They may not activate. And that's truly for most things, right? You want to make sure that there's not some kind of activation. And what I mean by that is like Sha energy, negative energy. That can be like, trash or dirty dishes or mold or just like an excessively dirty room or like a storage unit, dusty and gross and, that type of thing. we want to make sure that in general these locations don't have that energy. Really, all of these spaces in your home should hopefully not have that energy, but those are Sha indicators, and other ones can come from outside the home, being kind of like, pointy edges of a building, roads that kind of T-square into that area of your home. Things of that nature can cause some of these energies to kind of, they say kind of wake up, so to speak, disturb them. And that's, again, in the 3 is in the wealth and prosperity, and the 7 is the wisdom, knowledge, it's basically wisdom, knowledge, and like academics and all of that type of stuff. So if you notice any of these sections of your home are having issues, there might be some activation there. And you might also have, personal home numbers in these different guas that we should talk about or you need to address. So those are important things to know. Last number I want to talk about is number 9, and that's going in the north. And so 9 is just an enhancer, right? It's like it boosts anything. So whatever it's being connected with right now is going to get a big time boost. So if there's positive numbers in your north, you're gonna go to the moon or Mars or whatever, right? It's gonna be really, really big. If in your career and life path, right? If there's maybe some unfavorable ones there, that could be boosted. So 9 is kind of a neutral number. It's just a booster. It's like, here we go. We're at the top level. This is it. Like elevators to the top floor. So those are the energies that are coming in 2023. And there's one more that's really important that I want you to hear about. And that is the Grand Duke Jupiter Tai Su. Okay, so the Grand Duke Jupiter is going into the East Gua of the home. And this placement is actually very, very exact. So it's 82, let me look at my notes. It's 82.5 degrees to 97.5. And that's, again, in the east. So ideally what you want to do is get your compass out and see exactly where that location is in your home. This is like having the king or the emperor come into your space. And Jupiter, the actual planet, is extremely important in Chinese cosmology. It was, interestingly enough, it has the exact same position as the Chinese zodiac, like the annual Chinese animal. That is where Jupiter is. And so Jupiter, many people that study astrology know that Jupiter spends 12 months, about a year, in each astrological sign, right? When you look at a Western zodiac wheel. Well, I think it's 11.86 or whatever. So it's very, very close. That's months. So it's very close to 12 months that it is in these different positions in the sky. And this is this is one of the reasons why it is connected to the Chinese zodiac, or the animal zodiac, and why it is important for certain animals throughout the year to protect themselves, be aware of this information. I can go a little bit deeper into that. That's even like a step a little bit deeper than what I'm talking about here, but it's going to be very beneficial for anyone that's a rabbit-born person. And please keep in mind that in Chinese Bazi, in Chinese astrology, there are multiple pillars. So you actually have an animal for the year that you were born, you have an animal for the month you were born, you have an animal for the hour you were born. They are connected. So it is important to see if you have those placements, and then know that if you are in a clash or side class position with the rabbit on the zodiac wheel, that then you would need to, the ancients would say, you need to protect yourself and just be aware. So a direct opposition would be a rooster, someone that is on the exact opposite position. A side clash, which is about 90 degrees, also needs to protect themselves. So if you have any of these in your year, your day, your month, you would want to take a look. And in this exact location I just mentioned, that position between 82.5 and 97 degrees in your home, again with the compass, you would want to go ahead and make sure that area is clean. Everyone should make sure that area is clean, right? I'm a feng shui consultant. I want you to keep it, clean and tidy and not full of clutter. But it's also can be a very good placement to have an image of the Grand Duke Jupiter. That is a very traditional thing to do. You could have like a picture that you put in your pocket. One of the remedies that I like, so I like that. I like having, I like artwork and I like painting, so I think that's fine to do that in that location of your home. Another thing that you can do is actually use the trigram, which is essentially the I Ching symbol for the year, for the rabbit. And what the meaning of it is it's for this year is it's thunder in the sky, great strength. So again, this is great for rabbit people. And what I find interesting about this phrase is that thunder and lightning come together, right? It's a package deal. And lightning is one of the states of matter. Most people are familiar with solid, liquid, gas. Well, plasma is lightning. And plasma is so extremely hot that it creates that thunder sound. And I'm sure there's much more. It's like the photons, get so hot or whatever. Someone could probably explain it better. But essentially, that thunder is really, really important and is an element of lightning. So those two things go together. And, great strength is something, to think about for the year, to think about for this year coming forward. So that placing that in your east section of your home is something very easy that you can do. You can also, write out this trigram and have it in your pocket to make sure that it's protecting you, particularly if you're in a clash position with the Grand Duke Jupiter. In general, this location of the home is where you don't want to do any major renovations, like tearing down walls, ripping things up, disturbing the energy. Traditional masters would say you close off that section of the house and you don't use it. That's the traditional method, guys. Just don't use that east location of your home. Not applicable for most people, but if that is helpful for you, if there is that zone of your house that you can kind of, close up and keep very quiet and nice, then, go ahead and do that. But just think of it as the Grand Duke Jupiter as like the king coming to visit, the queen coming to visit. So make sure it's a nice space. Make sure the energy that's happening in there is very positive. I would say that's probably the goal for every location of your home, but this one in particular. So I think that is it. I think we covered it all. If you have any questions, please let me know. If you'd like to do a consultation with me, I would love that. That'd be so nice to meet you and to work with you. I work remotely, and I'm able to do the compass reading and to talk with you and learn about what your needs are, what your wants are, how we can work with the energy of your home to really bring about what you want. Let's work with that 9 energy that's boosting your life path. What can we do to really make sure that you are on the path that you want to be on? So if that's something that resonates, awesome. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great, magical 2023. Bye, guys.